Hi guys, Sean here from digiDirect, and today we're going to be talking about a new camera that's coming out that's been hugely anticipated, and that's the Canon 5D Mark IV. So just a quick background as to why this is such a big deal. The Canon 5D Mark III is a huge camera. It's just the bread and butter of many pros and enthusiasts alike. And it's been out for quite a while. It was released in early 2012, so it's been 4 years since the release of the Mark III and now the Mark IV. So people have been waiting. I'm not going to say they've been waiting patiently, but they've been waiting for a long time. So let's take a look at the Canon 5D Mark IV. Okay, let's start with a quick look at the physical design of the body. It's not much different than the Mark III, but that's fine because the Mark III was a very solidly designed body. So the Mark IV is rugged, it'll take a beating, it's weather sealed, it's got a nice big grip, it's a solid feeling camera. If you're used to using a 5D or some of the other Canon DSLRs, you'll feel right at home using the 5D Mark IV. Very good body design. Now at 800 grams, the Mark IV is a little bit smaller and lighter than the Mark III, which was 860 grams. They've also added a new autofocus toggle button, which lets you quickly switch between different autofocus zones. And they've added a fully implemented touchscreen, which is new on the 5D lineup. It's got touch focus, swipe between playback photos, pinch to zoom on playback, the whole shebang. The camera also has one CF card slot and one SD card slot. But okay, let's start talking about some of the new features. So let's start with the sensor. The 5D Mark IV has a 30.4 megapixel sensor. That's quite a jump. The Mark III had a 22 megapixel sensor. So they've increased it by 8 megapixels, which for Canon is a fairly significant jump. Usually their sensor resolution increases are a little bit more subtle, but that puts the 5D Mark IV in a really nice kind of sweet spot of sensor resolution. It's a very high resolution sensor. It's going to give you a lot of detail, allow you to crop in a lot on your photos or blow them up very large for large prints, but it's not so big that the file sizes are going to be unmanageably large. They're not going to slow down your computer or clog up your hard drives too badly, but they still give you pretty much all the resolution you'll probably need. And the photos that come out of here with that new sensor look great. Very crisp, very sharp, tons of detail, a lot of flexibility to crop and resize, and like I said, blow up. So very, very good sensor resolution on the Mark IV. So next, looking at autofocus performance, they've made some strong improvements here. So there's 61 autofocus points, which is the same as there was in the Mark III, but they've made significant improvements to the performance of these autofocus points. So basically, it has basically the same autofocus system as the Canon 1DX Mark II, which is a camera Canon came out with recently. It's their absolute top of the line, pro level DSLR. That autofocus system makes its way into the 5D Mark IV. So the autofocus is faster, it's more accurate, it's better in low light, which I'll touch on in just a sec here. But they've really made a lot of improvements here in the autofocus. So for any kind of action, sports, you got kids running around, anything with a lot of movement, the autofocus is really not going to let you down here. Now I mentioned autofocus low light performance. That's another thing that it inherits from the 1DX Mark II. It can autofocus accurately at up to -3 EV or exposure values, which basically means it can autofocus at basically 3 stops underexposed. That was a new feature in the 1DX Mark II, makes its way into the 5D Mark IV. That means that if you're in indoor environments or concerts or nighttime, anywhere where there's not a lot of light but you've got some movement going on, the autofocus system is going to be able to perform well in those low light conditions. And speaking of low light, the 5D Mark IV has excellent low light performance. Canon has improved their algorithms, which means that you get better low light performance at the same ISO ratings than you did on the Mark III, and the Mark III was already no slouch at low light. Now they've also bumped up the processors in the 5D Mark IV. Now they've got one Digic 6 Plus processor and a Digic 6 processor. So these are some of the newest, latest and greatest Canon processors, and they're basically going to speed up the operation of the whole camera. So the more processing power you have in the camera, the more it can process photos, the better the autofocus system can be. And it really needs that because it's got that bump in sensor resolution. You're capturing a lot more data when you're using the Mark IV, so you need those faster processors to keep up with that, and they do a very good job at doing this. Now, speaking of high frame rate, they have increased that a little bit as well. The 5D Mark IV can shoot it up to 7 frames per second. The Mark III could do 6 frames per second. So now we touch on a feature that's very near and dear to my heart as a videographer, and that's 4K video. The Canon 5D Mark IV has 4K video at up to 30 frames per second. Now this is something that videographers have been wanting in this camera for a long time. Canon has delivered. That's excellent. The 4K video is crisp, it's sharp, super detailed, a lot of resolution obviously. So it's really going to be useful whether you're delivering straight in 4K, which is going to be more and more common as more 4K monitors and 4K televisions come out. But even if you're only delivering in 1080p, it's more useful to shoot in 4K. This is because you can then have that extra resolution to do zooms, pans, to reframe your video. You do have a bit more flexibility, which is very useful. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with this new addition. They've also added a new feature where you can pull an 8 megapixel still from a 4K video. Now on that same subject, they've also added 1080p video at 60 frames per second, which is another good addition. Previously, we could only shoot 60 frames per second in 720 on the 5D Mark III. So they've upped that, so now you can finally shoot slow-mo at full HD. And finally, they've added Wi-Fi and GPS into the 5D Mark IV, and they've added a new file format called Dual Pixel RAW, which will basically give you a little bit more flexibility when dealing with your files. Canon is also releasing new versions of two of their high-end lenses, the 24-105 f4L-IS and the 16-35 f2.8L. So there you have it, that's the Canon 5D Mark IV. It's been a long time coming, but Canon have definitely listened to their customers and their users. They've included a lot of features that people have been asking for. I think it's going to be a bit of a crowd pleaser from that perspective. The photos are gorgeous, the video is gorgeous, the camera body is solid, the autofocus is fast. It's an excellent camera. So if you're looking for a very high level, good quality camera, definitely check out the Canon 5D Mark IV. If you want to learn more about the Canon 5D Mark IV, come into one of our stores. Now, if you're watching this before September 8th, 2016, the camera's not actually been released yet, but we'd be happy to give you more information. Although if you're in the Sydney area and it's August 26th or 27th, you can come to our Chatswood store and take a quick sneak peek at it. Watch this video for a bit more info on that. But if it's after September 8th, we'll have the camera in stock. Come check it out. We'd be happy to give you more information and test it out. We've got stores in the Sydney CBD, Chatswood, Bondi Junction, Miranda, the Melbourne CBD, the Brisbane CBD, and a new store that's just opened in Cannington, Western Australia, which is just outside of Perth. You can also order the Canon 5D Mark IV on our website at www.digidirect.com.au. Take care.